Now, welcome to another Let's Watch Some Star Wars. This time it is the 11th episode of Season 2 of Andor, titled Who Else Knows? Once again, I'm firing up the episode, I'm rewatching it, I pause every so often, I put up some screenshots, I tell you what I like, what I don't like, or whatever random thing pops into my head. And so, let's get right into it. Alright, so we open up back at the hospital where Clea has managed to make her way in, to kill Luthen, and to get out again, and we see Supervisor here, the one who used to be the assistant of Dedra. He's talking about how he wants to make sure it is known that this was Dedra's security package, this was all her, and now they are picking up the ball, and, well, they can't fumble it, obviously. He wants it all handled perfectly, and then we see the hospital director come over and he's all angry, you can't shut down my hospital, this is my hospital, and he's like, you know what, you're interfering with an ISB crime scene, so you're under arrest, I'm gonna have to take you downtown basically for questioning. And he's like, yeah, you made your point, okay, do what you gotta do. It just shows the power of the ISB, right? That you cannot say or do anything against them, that is their authority, that is the might of the Empire at this point in time. Next, we see Dedra in an ISB interrogation room, very similar to how we once saw Cyril in maybe the exact same room about to be interrogated by Dedra. And they're both in there, ironically, for kind of the same reason, right? For becoming obsessed with somebody, trying to find them at any cost, and maybe irritating the ISB in the process, even though obviously Dedra is a part of it. It's interesting how similar the two characters were, and in another time, another place, they probably would have been very happy together. Anyway, we then see Director Krennic shut everything down. He doesn't want this recorded because it's going to be some sensitive material, which is what Dedra missed in the first place in her obsession to find Luthen, to find Axis. He goes in there and basically says, you either have to be a rebel or you have to be brilliantly incompetent, because there is no other explanation for how you so carelessly handled all this material you had, which she even acknowledges she never even read or cared about, that she accidentally had some files forwarded to her office about Galen Erso and the Death Star and similar things, and she just let them sit there for years until eventually Lonnie went digging in her files, got his hands on them, and then delivered them to Luthen. The irony here is her obsession with trying to find Luthen eventually gave Luthen the exact thing he needed the most, or that was the most important thing he could ever get his hands on, the information about the Death Star, which is then passed on, as we know. Sure, yes, she caught him, and she was still very proud of herself and saying, I found him, as if that mattered more than all the failures. But whether she likes it or not, she did help the rebellion quite a bit, and thus the ISB here and Krennic think that she must be, again, she's either a rebel or she is incredibly incompetent, and when you consider how brilliant she is, it doesn't seem like anybody could be that incompetent. So we dub her a rebel, and we move on, and, well, we know she's going to end up in a not-so-happy place. Then we see Supervisor here. He is reviewing some of the security footage. They're trying to put together exactly what happened, and they find Clea on the footage and eventually figure out there is no team. It was just her. All the while we see Clea is back at the safe house. She has a radio there. She is setting it up. And we know she's in a bad spot right now. If she uses the radio, there's a really good chance they could find her, they could track it. But at the same time, if she doesn't try to get out a signal, there's no way she's getting off planet. Everybody is about to know she is the most wanted person on Coruscant. She knows they're about to put out some sort of bulletin or something that people will be on the lookout for her. Furthermore, the information needs to get out there about the weapons project. They don't know it's a Death Star yet, but they know Clea knew and Luthen knew that it was some sort of big weapon project and that it is responsible for Gorman, the mining on Jedha, and so on. And so this is the only way to save the legacy of Luthen, to save the legacy of the guy she had to just kill, and her legacy as well. Everything they have worked for comes down to this. There's a really good chance they're going to find her. She knows that. She knows she has to do what she has to do at this point, that the rebellion must know, even if ultimately she's captured, though I don't think she's going to let herself be taken alive, much like Luthen wasn't. Then we're back on Yavin. We see Willman limping home. Remember, he was injured at the end of the last arc, and a year later, well, a lingering injury, clearly. He's heading back home, and there's Drina. Drina is like, hey, there's something under the bed. It was beeping, and he's like, when? What happened? How long ago? And it's, of course, a signal coming in from, as far as he knows, a Luthen or a Luthen shop. And so he then goes and takes it to Cassian. And Cassian, before he gets there, it's him, it's Melshi, it's K2SO. They're playing a game together. I think it's a new game. I remember reading something about they designed a game for the series, something like Dominoes or whatever. Anyway, they're playing a game, and this is really kind of showing us how friendly that K2 and Cassian and even Melshi has become. At one point, K2 is like, we've played 863 games and you've never made a bet like this. It's just trying to tell you it's been a year. These three are buddies. That everybody is used to K2 probably being around the KX droid. They've gotten over whatever happened on Gorman with him. Great little scene. Love having K2SO back. Love having Alan Tudyk who voices him back. It just adds some nice humor to the show. It doesn't necessarily need it, but I love it anyway, if that makes sense. We then see Supervisor here on his way back to ISB headquarters for a meeting with Partagaz and Krennic, and he is telling them about Clea, and Krennic is like, do whatever you gotta do to find her. I don't care how you do it, just make it happen. I want her face everywhere. I want everybody knowing that she is a most wanted person on Coruscant, essentially. And I like that here is kind of looking back and forth between Krennic and Partagaz, because he seems to be like, are we supposed to be listening to this advice? Is this the best course of action right now? And even Partagaz seems to be sighing or not in total agreement with the plan, but he eventually comes up with the idea, say she has an infectious disease. Partagaz says, we'll just say she escaped from the hospital, has this disease, and if nobody finds her, she's going to infect thousands and kill thousands of people. Krennic likes the plan and tells here to basically make it happen. And then there's a little conversation between Partagaz and Krennic, and Partagaz is like, Death Star, huh? That's what we're calling it, that's what we're doing. He seems to not be turning or anything quite like that, but there seems to be, the wheels are turning. He's questioning some of the things he's done in his life, maybe, or some of the things that have led him here to the head of this department of the ISB, which is kind of falling apart, right? We've had Alani and now Dedra right under his nose, that they were spies, or so the Empire believes. So Partagaz knows he's in trouble for this, that his department again has been failing, and that's going to fall back on him. And he's kind of mad at Krennic at the same time that he got looped into this whole Death Star thing. And Krennic's like, hey, we're close, it's only a couple days away now, we got it all under control. And Partagaz is like, save your sermon for the Emperor, save your sermon for Palpatine. Basically, I don't want to hear your excuses anymore, why don't you go tell them to Palps. Anyway, a good little scene that kind of sets up a decision by Partagaz later on. It's then right on back to Yavin, where they are standing around looking at the transmitter and wondering, or Cassian's wondering, maybe it malfunctioned, maybe it didn't actually hear anything. And Wilman is like, no man, I keep this thing charged. It had to be a Luthen, even though it's not Luthen. Soon enough, it does again go off, and Cassian is immediately like, let's go, we gotta go help Luthen. And even though these two haven't always seen eye to eye and probably haven't talked in quite a while, he still has loyalty to him, and the whole time you're hearing K2SO talking about we're not supposed to have transmitting devices, you know, how many protocols we're breaking right now, doing the whole classic droid thing. Either way, Cassian and Melshi, along with K2, immediately take to the U-Wing and are off-planet. General Draven is mad because he's kind of had this problem with Cassian before, this kind of split loyalty between him and Luthen, or Yavin and Luthen. And so he's obviously not so happy right now. Back at ISB headquarters, we see that Dedra is in a detention cell, and as soon as she hears somebody coming, she stands up, she tries to make herself look presentable, until she sees who it is. It's here, and she's kind of like, what the hell are you doing here? And he's come here for help. He tells her that Luthen is dead, but that the assistant is on the run, and he needs help finding her, and that a quick solution may do wonders. In other words, if we can find her, maybe we can get you out of the cell, we can convince them you're not a rebel spy. And so she does indeed give him some advice, tells him to go look at the old radios, that they're probably using old frequencies or something like that. That's probably the best way to find her, because she's good. She's not going to slip up. She's not going to go where she can be found. She's too good for all that, so you got to be better. We then bounce back to Yavin for a quick scene where Wilman is telling General Draven that they went to Coruscant, and Draven's like, really? Luthen snaps his fingers and you guys just come running? And Wilman is trying to tell him this was a final message. This was an emergency message. This isn't just, hey, I need your help. This is, I really need something from you right now. And then Wilman is like, hey, without Luthen, we're not here right now. He is the foundation of all of this, so he deserves whatever he needs from us. You don't have Yavin Base if you don't start with Luthen Rail. Yet again, we're back on Coruscant, and here it is at Luthen's shop trying to get an update, and the one trying to fix the radio, the technician trying to fix the radio, is like, there's only so much I can do here. We would actually need a signal, and of course, as she says it, she picks up a signal, because Cassian, K2, and Melshi have arrived, and they're contacting Clea. They're now going to be able to trace it, and a tactical ISB team is being prepared and being sent there at the same time that they're going to try to find Clea, which, big confrontation coming up pretty obviously. And on a bit of a side note, I think it was very smart and clever of them to sort of make this final arc, this final mission about finding or trying to save Clea instead of Luthen, because, we know Melshi and Cassian and K2, we know they're going to be just fine, they're going to be in the movie. And so it was kind of smart to have them try to save Clea, because she could just as easily live as die. Whereas Luthen, I think if this was about trying to go and save Luthen, I think we were all just assuming Luthen is going to die. I don't know why, but I think most of us, and I don't know why I think that either, but I think most of us have just kind of assumed Luthen was never going to make it out of the show alive, that at some point he dies. That just seems like the sacrifice, the final sacrifice he'd have to make at some point. And so again, this final mission being about saving her, and this final arc has done a great job of making us care about Clea. We've liked her before, she's been a fine character, but I don't think you really start feeling something for her, or at least I didn't, until right now in this story arc, and I'm tense. This is a lot of tension right here, going to try to save her, because like I said, she could just as easily live as die right here and now. And so Cassian and Melshi make their way up to her, and the first thing they're kind of worried about is, where's the Luthen? Is he dead? Which is kind of taking her aback, because she's trying to tell them about this super weapon that the Empire has built, and they seem more concerned about making sure that Luthen is indeed dead, because if he's not, that's a big, big problem. They can't afford to have him talking and telling them about Yavin. Cassian is then like, this is important, don't get me wrong, and we will go and tell them, but we have to get out of here. And she's like, I'm not going to Yavin. That's the place where they kind of make fun of Luthen. He's not well liked there, even though they owe him, just like Wilman was saying before to Draven, they owe him so much. Without him, there is no rebellion, and there is no information about the Death Star. And that's what she's trying to tell Cassian, like, you have to get this to Yavin, because this is the reason he never went to Yavin. He was staying for this. And now those people there, they have to finish what he started, basically. They have to know how serious this is, and Cassian is again like, we'll go tell them together, but we got to get out of here. And all the while, the ISB is moving in. We see an Imperial shuttle land, and so does K2SO, which is when, thanks to the comms being down, they are blocking all communication in the area. He decides to disobey orders, after he always likes to tell everybody else how they are disobeying orders or not following protocol. He goes in. All the while, the ISB is also going in. They initially go to the wrong floor, then they go to the right one, and that is where the episode ends. And though it is certainly a fantastic episode, especially within the context of the story arc, it is maybe on its own not the most burly episode of the entire series. In fact, it is the shortest one of this season, I believe. And I think if these were coming out week to week, there would have been, I don't know about complaints, but certainly grumblings about, really, this was all we got this week. This is the penultimate episode, and it ends on this kind of cliffhanger. But since they aren't coming out week to week, it doesn't really feel like this is lacking in any way, shape, or form. Not that I'm saying it's lacking, but you hopefully get what I'm saying here. This is not the most robust episode of the entire series. It is stuck kind of between the whole Clea, Luthen backstory in the first episode, and between the excellent finale and the resolution of this rescue attempt. It's a setup episode. It does a great job. It certainly has its moments. I like the Krennic and Dedra thing. There's some other good things in there, but again, there's really not a ton to talk about. Of all my watch some Star Wars videos for Andor Season 2, I'm guessing, I don't know the time quite yet, but I'm guessing this is going to be by far the shortest because, once again, not a ton to talk about, but still a great episode, and we have a fantastic finale to talk about tomorrow. Well, that is all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn. Take to the comments below, and your turn to tell me what you thought of this episode. And again, tomorrow I will be doing the final episode of Andor. Kind of sad, kind of excited, but it is what it is. Either way, take to the comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.